Now, if there's one takeaway that you have from this video, I hope it's the fact that I think PJ is perfect and can do no wrong. Hello everyone, my name is Caitlin and welcome back to my channel. So today we are talking about the side ship of PJ and Skyler from Good Luck Charlie. Now, these two were not one of the most voted for ships by any means. I think they had a total of like 14 votes. But as someone who grew up on Good Luck Charlie and remembered absolutely loving these two, I thought that it would be fun to revisit the healthier ship from this series. If you're familiar with these two, then you might already know that we didn't exactly see much of them. And so because their story is so short, we're not going to be doing any chapters today and we're just going to do their whole story in one go. But before we do that, I do feel like I have to give a little bit of background on this one, just for the off chance that somebody watching this has maybe never seen the show before. So basically we have our main character Teddy, and in the first season she learns that her boyfriend Spencer is cheating on her. They obviously break up and then Teddy is a wreck, and she tells her best friend Ivy that nobody understands what she's going through. This brings Ivy to invite over Skyler, who is the girl that Spencer cheated on her with, as she is the one person who does understand what she's going through. The two then go on to bond by writing a diss track about Spencer, and in the end they develop a friendship. So it's kind of sweet that something good came out of something so awful. And with that, you pretty much have all of the background info that you need for us to jump into PJ and Skyler. But if you want even more detail, you can always go and watch the video that I did on Teddy and Spencer a little while ago, and I'll link that somewhere here. But before we jump right into it, this video is sponsored, so let's talk about that first. Today's video is sponsored by Factor. Factor makes meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian approved meals right to your door. For me, Factor has really helped me stick to the routines that I love. They are my go-to lunch or dinner solution when I'm working from home and have a hard time putting that work that I love on pause. And so with Factor, I'm making sure that I'm not missing any meals, as Factor eliminates the hassle of prepping, cooking, and cleaning up. Simply heat and savor the good stuff. I also love that when things get hectic, Factor is flexible. You can change your order up every week with plans that range from 4 to 18 meals per week, or pause or reschedule your deliveries anytime. Factor is also now owned by HelloFresh, and so with a wider array of meal plans to choose from, there really is something for everyone. I personally love switching between both brands, and so now my audience can enjoy both with a discount from me. So if you want to try out Factor, you can head to factor75.com or click the link in the description. Use code 50Caitlin for 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. So that's 50Caitlin at factor75.com for 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Thank you so much to Factor for sponsoring this video, and with all that being said, let's get into PJ and Skyler. So our story begins in season 2, episode 7, when Teddy and Skyler sign up for a Battle of the Bands competition. And to Teddy's dismay, so does PJ and the Vibe, which is her older brother PJ's band that he has with his best friend Emmett. We later see her and Skyler rehearsing their song together in Teddy's room, until they get interrupted by PJ and Emmett rehearsing their song outside her door. Teddy angrily goes to yell at them that they're trying to rehearse, but PJ just yells back that they are too. And then out comes Skyler. Her and PJ both pause after meeting one another, shyly saying hi before introducing themselves. Teddy then asks if they can go and rehearse somewhere else, but then Skyler cuts in saying that they could instead. This causes Teddy to pull her aside to have a word with her.
Hey, we are trying to rehearse!
So are we! Hi.
Hi.
I'm PJ.
I'm Skyler.
I'm Emmett.
Maybe you guys should go rehearse somewhere else?
Or we could. Skyler, dear, a word.
I am a little bit surprised that Teddy and Skyler have been friends all this time and yet she hasn't met PJ yet. But then I guess I also have friends where I don't really know their siblings that well either. And then I'm also okay with it because it means that we get to see their first meeting. And I do think that it was really sweet how they got all shy with one another. And this scene also does a great job of showing them as like a top tier best friends brothers ship. As obviously Teddy and Skyler are friends and then PJ is her older brother. And so now I just feel like I need an edit of them to that song made just as soon as possible. But as I was saying, she tells her that they were there first, and so if anyone's leaving, it's them. She then tells her to back her up on this, and then they go back over to the guys. Teddy yells at them that they were there first, and Skyler adds a yeah after everything that Teddy says. PJ argues that they aren't leaving either, and Skyler adds another yeah in response to this, leading Teddy to have to tell her to only say that after the things that she says. She then excuses them as she says that they have a contest to win, and then the two bands get into a little bit of a song battle through the closed door. as they both go on to sing very loudly and angrily at one another through the wall. So I honestly feel like we're off to a great start here. We've got the best friend's brother aspect, as well as the forbidden lovers thing too, with Teddy forcing Skyler to fight with them. And I feel like this kind of creates a little bit of an enemies to lovers thing as well, as they are supposed to be competing against one another. And so I feel like all of this together is just a recipe for a great ship. The following day, Skyler shows up to rehearse with Teddy, but then PJ is the one who answers the door. He shyly says hi to her once again, and she smiles at him before saying hi back. She then asks him if Teddy's there, and he tells her that she's not home yet, but still invites her in. Once she's inside, she tells PJ that she really liked his song yesterday. He thanks her, saying that he likes it too, before he corrects himself, saying that he liked her song too. He then admits that he actually didn't really hear it, but what he does like is her hair. Skyler thanks him and says that she likes his hair too. She then says that it must be nice for his girlfriend to have a boyfriend with such great hair. PJ then breaks the news to her that he doesn't have a girlfriend, and Skyler tells him that that's too bad before she turns away from him and celebrates this to herself. He then pulls the same move, telling her that if she wants to tell her boyfriend that he doesn't have a girlfriend, then he's fine with that. And then she tells him that she doesn't have a boyfriend. He calls this a bummer before celebrating it to himself as well. And then Teddy comes home, interrupting them. She apologizes for being late, but Skyler says that it's not a problem as PJ has been keeping her company. She then apologizes for that as well before taking her away to rehearse. She also scolds PJ as she's leaving, telling him not to bother them. Skyler plays along with this, saying the same thing, but then once Teddy turns away, she makes a call me sign to PJ.
Sorry I'm late.
Oh, no problem. PJ's been keeping me company. Sorry about that, too.
All right, come on, let's rehearse. Hey, don't bother us.
Yeah, don't bother us.
So this is just adorable, and I feel like this scene does a really great job of capturing that like high school romance kind of vibe. Them both asking if they're taken without straight out asking if they're taken, and then seeing them both have the same reaction to that was just so sweet. Not to mention Skyler then pretending to not be interested in him after Teddy gets home, as well as PJ's adorable reaction in the end. Overall, I just feel like this is a perfect scene from start to finish. But all of this brings us to the day of the Battle of the Bands. We see Teddy at the mall looking for Skyler, and then she pops out of a photo booth. Teddy is surprised to see her, telling her that she's been looking for her everywhere. She then grabs her hand, telling her that they have to go as it's almost their turn to perform. And then this is when Skyler breaks the news to her that she doesn't want to do the contest anymore. Teddy asks why, and then she explains that she doesn't want to compete against her boyfriend. Teddy is confused by this, asking who her boyfriend is. And then we see the photo strip come out of the photo booth. Teddy goes to take it, and then once she sees it, she starts chanting no to herself, as PJ then emerges from behind the photo booth curtain, countering her no's with yeses. Teddy asks if they're a couple, and Skyler says that's right, calling PJ her dude, and PJ calls Skyler his lady as he goes to put his arm around her. Teddy then says that she's going to hurl and asks if they don't want to do the Battle of the Bands because of this. PJ says that's right, as competing against one another wouldn't be good for their relationship. Teddy asks what about their song, and Skyler tells her that she can sing it on her own, but Teddy argues that it's a duet and that she can't do it without her.
So you guys are a couple?
That's right. PJ's my dude.
And Skyler's my lady.
And Teddy's gonna hurl. Wait, so that's why you don't want to do Battle of the Bands, because you're a couple?
That's right. Because competing against each other would not be good for our relationship.
But what about our song?
You can sing it.
But it's a duet.
So?
So I can't duet without you.
Now, I have failed to mention that one of the main reasons as to why Teddy wants to compete so badly in this is because her boyfriend Spencer is also competing. And so that just makes Skyler backing out at the last minute that much more frustrating. And we see this when Teddy then has to watch Spencer perform, and she does so angrily. And if you'll recall, he's not just Teddy's ex, he's also Skyler's. And so she then goes over to her, telling her that it looks like their ex is going to win this thing. But Skyler says that she doesn't care as she has a new boyfriend now, happily holding on to PJ's arm, which I did find to be really cute. Teddy, on the other hand, not so much. She says that it makes her mad that because they're now an annoying couple, that they can't compete. She then tells them to wait a minute, and PJ says that he knows that look, saying that she's getting an idea. And then he notes that he never gets that look. Skyler then happily exclaims that she doesn't either, and they both awe at this before hugging one another.
Wait a minute.
Ooh, I know that look. She's getting an idea. I never get that look.
Me neither.
So if you haven't caught on by now, PJ and Skyler are kind of both like the dumb characters of the show. I'd argue Skyler a little bit more so than PJ, which is funny because she wasn't exactly that way in the first episode that we saw her in. But then when they brought her back for the Spencer diss track episode, she was suddenly really ditzy. And I don't exactly love the dumb character trope, but one thing that I like about it here is that it highlights how smart PJ actually is. And I feel like out of the two of them, he definitely has a bit more street smarts than she does. And I like thinking about PJ getting to sort of protect Skyler in a way, and it just like makes me really happy that they ended up finding one another. We then end the episode with the announcer saying that their next band is PJ and the Vibe plus Teddy and Skyler. Teddy then intros the song, calling it one about new love and how people find one another, although it might annoy someone's sister. The girls then perform the beginning of their singer-songwritery type song before we cut to PJ and the Vibes, where they sing-yell about liking girls who are hot, hot, hot better than girls who are not, not, not. We then go back to the girls' song where Skyler sings her lyrics right to PJ, and he does the same back to her during their turn. They then do a true mashup of both songs for the ending, and Skyler winks at him. And although these two songs may seem to be polar opposites, that somehow works together really well. And we see this in the end when they win the competition and put Sucky Spencer in his place. So as far as first episodes go, I would say that this one is practically perfect. I remember loving it as a kid, and I do still think that it holds up. I love that the couple is a main focus in this episode, and I really wish that it stayed that way throughout the other ones that we get, but you guys will see what I mean by that moving forward. So on to episode 9, where we begin with PJ running up to Skyler in the hall. He wishes her a happy 1-week anniversary, and she is happy that he remembered, and then he jokes saying that they said that it wouldn't last. Skyler, of course, misses the fact that this is a joke, asking instead if they really said that and who they are, leading PJ to have to explain that it's an expression. She then concludes that it is so fun to go out with a smart guy, and she grabs a card for him from her locker. She hands it to him, telling him that she wrote him a poem, and he reads it aloud, saying that P is for the way you play guitar and J is for the jokes you tell. He awes at this, calling it beautiful, and she admits that the hardest part was getting it to rhyme, and so she didn't. He then reveals that he got her something too as he pulls a box out of his backpack. He opens it for her, and she takes out a necklace with a churro hanging from it. She asks what it is, and he explains that it's the last bite of the first snack that they ever shared. She then awes at his gift as well before putting it on and telling him that it makes her so happy.
I have a gift for you too.
A necklace?
Yeah.
What's this?
It's a piece of churro. It is the last bite of the first snack we ever shared.
Aw, that makes me so happy.
Now this is just so incredibly precious, and I love that we get this scene. I think Skyler's poem is adorable, and I love the thought of PJ saving that piece of churro instead of throwing it out. Despite the fact that it would probably get gross and rotten, like that gift is actually perfect. It actually reminds me of when I would go on first dates with people, and I'm actually a little bit embarrassed to admit this, but if we went out for coffee and they paid, I would save that little sticker on my drink that would have their name on it, like just in the off chance that we would end up together. I thought that that would be a cute little thing to have. And so the fact that PJ is also that sentimental type of person is just everything to me. And I feel like you probably could save that churro by like putting it in some resin or something, or maybe it would just get moldy in the resin. I don't know. But I still just loved everything about this. Getting back to the scene, Skyler's phone then beeps and she reads the text before saying that now she's sad. PJ asks what's wrong, and she praises him for knowing her so well as something is wrong. She then reveals that her ex-boyfriend keeps texting her and wants to get back together. PJ gets upset by this, arguing that she's wearing his churro and that they're in the churro stage. And then he says that he's going to talk to this guy and set him straight. He asks who he is, and she tells him that his name's Brock and that he's the captain of the wrestling team. Apparently he thinks that he's so great because he's never been beaten. PJ then notes that he's never lost a fight before, whereas he's never been in one before, joking that they're going to have a lot to talk about. The bell rings for class and the two of them hug goodbye. Then after Skyler is gone, PJ says to himself that the churro stage is complicated. Now this is what I was hinting at earlier on when I said that we do go on to get episodes about the couple, but they're not necessarily about them, because the rest of this episode is just about PJ and this guy Brock. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved the scene that we just talked about, and I'm really glad that we got it. But at the same time, I wish it wasn't the only scene from this episode where we actually see the two of them together. Like, we already don't get many episodes of them to begin with, and so it just sucks that 2 out of the 6 episodes that we did get included PJ being off on this side quest stressed instead of being with Skyler. Anyways, we later see PJ go to Gabe and he asks for his opinion on what he's going to say to Brock. He then reads him what he has so far, which says, "Hello, Brock. You don't know me, but I've heard a lot of great things about you. If it's not too much trouble, could you please stop texting Skyler so much?" And I just absolutely love this, and I feel like it is just so PJ. Like, he is a lover and not a fighter through and through. And I feel like the fact that this is what he was planning on saying to him is just so adorable. But then, of course, Gabe then gives him some bad advice, telling him that he has to be confident and show Brock that he means business. This leads to PJ calling Brock and saying instead that Skyler is his girlfriend now, and that he wants him to stop bothering her. After he hangs up, Gabe asks what Brock said, and he tells him that he wants to meet with him after school. He's not sure what for, but he's guessing that it's homework, as he said that he's going to teach him a lesson. And so obviously Gabe is now aware that he walked him right into a fight, and so he quickly tries to fix this with the help of his karate teacher. And so then he has him come over to help PJ learn some moves. But then PJ has a better idea as he notices the self-defense suit that the karate teacher is wearing. The next day we see PJ at the park wearing the same suit as a scrawny little guy walks up to him. PJ is shocked that this guy is the captain of the wrestling team, but the kid isn't fazed, not even by the giant suit that PJ is wearing as he gets ready to fight him. He then continues to punch PJ with no reaction from him, and in the end he tells him to forget it, that he can't beat him up and that he can't get Skyler back. PJ tells him that he knows that it stinks to get his heart broken, especially from someone as beautiful and smart as Skyler, and Brock retorts that she is, well, beautiful. PJ then says that fighting never solves anything, and Brock agrees that he really has to work on his people skills. And then that's pretty much it for this episode. Now don't get me wrong, it's nice to see PJ stick up for Skyler and be able to get through to Brock just by speaking, and it also proves that PJ is the right guy for her and not this kid due to his comment about her not being smart. But really, I just would have preferred more moments between the couple instead, or even just one moment at the end. That being said though, the next episode is actually pretty decent in that department, and so let's move on to episode 10. So we begin with PJ and Skyler studying in the basement, and she tells him that there's something that she needs to talk to him about. PJ starts to panic, thinking that she wants to break up with him, but she says that that's not it and that she actually thinks that things are going really well. He is then shocked that she feels that way, as he does as well, but then she says that they've been seeing one another for 3 weeks and yet they haven't gone out on their first date yet. He then realizes that she's right, as they've only gone out with friends, and she says that she thinks that you learn a lot about a person based on a first date. He says like what, and she says sometimes their name, or if the relationship is meant to be. Apparently an awesome first date sets the tone for the entire relationship, as she saw this once on the cover of a magazine. He asks if she read the article and she says that she's not a big reader. He then tells her that they are right for each other as he puts his arm around her.
Or if the relationship is meant to be.
Really?
Yeah, an awesome first date sets the tone for the entire relationship. I saw it on a cover of a magazine.
Just the cover? Did you read the article?
No, I'm not a big reader.
We are so right for each other.
But then Skyler holds back, saying how will they know if they're right for each other if they haven't gone out on their first date. So he asks her where she wants to go on their first date, but then she gets up playfully asking what first date, as nobody's asked her yet. Hint, hint. He then agrees that she's right before getting up and asking her if she would like to, but then she realizes that she's dropped an earring. The two begin to look for it, and he finds it under the couch. And now in a proposal position, he asks her if she would like to, right as his dad comes downstairs. His dad then yells at him, asking him what he's doing, and then pulls him up off the floor and away from Skyler. He then gets upset with his dad, telling him that he was about to ask her a very important question, but then Bob argues that he's only 17 and works at Quickie Chickie, asking him if he wants to ruin his life forever. PJ then reveals that he was just going to ask Skyler out on a date, and Bob pauses. He then clues in, telling them to have fun before quickly leaving.
Wait. Oh, yeah, here it is. Got it. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Skyler, would you...
PJ, what are you doing?
I was about to ask Skyler a very important question.
You're 17 years old. You work at Quickie Chickie. You want to ruin your life forever?
I was just gonna ask her out on a date.
So a great scene, and I really do like the beginning of it as we get to see more of their dynamic as a couple. I love seeing this more flirtatious side of Skyler and PJ playing along. I think it made for a really great moment and reminded me of the one that they shared during the Battle of the Bands episode. I then was a little bit disappointed to see that they were just kind of teeing this up to have that comedic moment with his dad coming in, but it still was such a funny moment and really showcased how great Eric was on the show, and so I'm not complaining. Moving on, PJ is then struggling to come up with the perfect first date idea, and so he goes to his dad for help. He suggests that he take her up into the mountains and have a romantic moonlight picnic overlooking the city. PJ really likes this idea, and so he thanks him for the advice before going to plan his date. Moving on to the day of, we see PJ and Skyler driving on a very winding road. PJ asks her how she's enjoying their first date so far, and she notes that it sure is a twisty road, but PJ says that that's fine with him as he's having fun. He then makes some whoa noises as they twist back and forth again, but then he notices that she's not whoaing along with him. She says that that's because she's not feeling very well. He suggests that maybe she's just hungry, telling her to grab something out of the picnic basket, but then she ends up throwing up in it instead. Now, I would include a clip of this, but I also get carsick, and just thinking about this scene is almost making me nauseous. And I know that there are some people out there with vomit phobias, and I'm low-key one of those people as well, and so we're just gonna move right along. We later see PJ and Skyler in the living room with a nice dinner set up for the two of them. PJ tells her that he's so glad that she gave him a second chance, and she asks him to just pretend that their first date never happened. He plays along, asking what first date, but of course she misses this joke and says instead the one where I puked in the picnic basket. He then tells her that it's an expression, and she is confused, asking how puked in the picnic basket is an expression. And honestly, I understand her confusion here because it is a little bit of an odd exchange. Not to mention, puked in the picnic basket does sound like it could be an expression. Anyways, they then get interrupted by the doorbell, and unfortunately for PJ, it is Gabe's teacher who's at the door. The same teacher who Teddy and him previously pretended to be Gabe's parents for. So Mrs. Monroe tells PJ that she has something to tell him about his wife. Skyler, of course, overhears this and asks PJ if he has a wife. PJ says no, and then the teacher asks if he doesn't, but then he tells her that of course he does. She then asks who Skyler is, and Skyler tells her that she's his girlfriend. Just then, Teddy comes home with her date, and the chaos increases. But then, of course, the jig is up after their actual parents come home. So unfortunately, PJ is now 2 for 2 on ruined dates, and I kind of wish we could have gotten a final scene between the couple with PJ being upset about this and Skyler telling him that it's okay, just because she was so adamant before about how important a first date is. I think that it would have wrapped up their story just a little bit better if we got to see her come around in the end and tell him that none of that really matters, and all that matters is how she feels about him. But instead, we do get this final video diary from Teddy. She says that they all got grounded, and PJ cuts in saying that things are now cool between him and Skyler after he explained to her that he's not married to his sister. Skyler agrees that that would have been awful and then says talk about puked in the picnic basket. Teddy asks what, and then Skyler tells her that it's an expression. And I'm actually kind of loving this ongoing joke that her and PJ now have. I mean, it's not the most romantic thing in the world, but it's something at least. And I like that this scene did give us some sort of conclusion to their story in this episode. A conversation between the two of them is referenced. I personally would have preferred to see that, but I understand time constraints and that I think this is like one of 3 plots in this episode, so it is what it is. Anyways, it's now time for another PJ side quest episode, and this one's kind of a wild ride, and so get ready. So a couple episodes later, we see PJ and Skyler struggling with a children's puzzle. He then tells her to forget about it, saying that Charlie can help them with it later. Just then, Skyler's phone goes off and she tells PJ that she has to go as her dad is outside. They hug goodbye and Skyler leaves. After she's gone, we hear a knock on the door, and so PJ goes to answer it. Behind the door is a scary looking bald man who you may also recognize as Grumpy from Once Upon a Time. He asks if he's PJ and then walks right in, taking a seat on their couch. He then asks him if he doesn't think that it's important to meet the father of the girl that he's dating. PJ then calms down, realizing that this guy is Skyler's dad and not something much worse. He then tells him that he's going to be watching him to make sure that he's treating Skyler right. But he emphasizes that he doesn't want her to know that he's been checking up on him. And then the rest of the episode is basically just PJ getting spooked by Skyler's quote-unquote dad. And so I feel like this is a good time for me to say that I really don't like this trope. I just feel like the whole no man will ever be good for my daughter type of thing is just so toxic and a little bit outdated. I understand the whole like wanting to protect your kids sort of thing, but at the same time, your kids are gonna date whoever they're gonna date. And so anything that the parent does to try to influence that, I just feel like it's not gonna end well. And then I also just feel like it's kind of silly to get just so pressed over a high school relationship. Like, I know that there are situations where some people do end up marrying their high school sweethearts, but I feel like those people are definitely in the minority. And I also think that it's really important for you, especially as a young person, to date around and experience different relationships and learn how you shouldn't be treated so that you know how you should be treated when the time comes. I don't know, I personally never experienced the whole overbearing parenting trope, and I feel like that was a bit healthier in my experience, but I know that different cultures can come into play as well. So I'm really curious to know what your guys' take on this trope is, because I feel like I'm honestly just sick of seeing it in media. And I know that this show is a little bit old, but I do still feel like this does come up here and there still to this day. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about this one, because it's always just bugged me in particular. Anyways, the next day we see PJ leaving, and he gets spooked by Skyler's dad on the front porch. He then tells him that he assumed when he said that he would be watching him, he thought that that would mean from afar with like binoculars or something. He then admits that he did that for a while, but then he got bored before asking where he's going. He tells him that he's going to meet Skyler at the library, and then her dad makes a comment about his appearance, saying that he didn't even bother to brush his hair. PJ then argues that it took him 20 minutes to get it to look like this, and this causes him to take out a notebook and write this down, as apparently every time that PJ does something that he doesn't like, he writes this down in the negatives column. PJ asks if there's a positive column as well, and he pointedly says not yet, and all of this leads PJ to go back inside and brush his hair again. Later, we see Skyler and PJ studying on the couch. PJ then taps her on the shoulder and smiles, showing off the orange peel that he has for teeth. Skyler laughs before showing him that she did the same thing, and then he sighs, saying that the orange peel smile always cracks him up. He then tells her that he's going to go rinse as he hates the feeling of pulp in his teeth, and she says that she loves learning new things about him. Once in the kitchen, PJ rinses his mouth, and then when he looks up, he is spooked once again by Skyler's dad. This time he's at the window right above the sink. He then goes back to Skyler, clearly startled by all of this, and she asks if everything's okay. He tells her that everything's great, but then when she scoots closer to him on the couch, he quickly gets up. She then says that he's acting weird, but he says that he isn't. This causes Skyler to ask aloud why this always happens to her. Apparently she'll date a guy for a while, and then all of a sudden he starts acting all strange. PJ asks what happens next, and then she says that they just sort of disappear.
Why does this always happen?
What?
I date a guy for a while, and then all of a sudden he starts acting all strange.
Then what happens?
Then he just kind of disappears.
And now this got me thinking, because then I started wondering if Spencer got this treatment as well. But then I was like, no, I'm asking the wrong question here. I don't think that Spencer would have gotten this treatment, but I think that maybe Spencer is the reason as to why her boyfriends received this treatment now. Maybe Skyler's dad saw how hurt she was after her breakup with Spencer, that he made it his mission to make sure that that never happened to her again. I think it would explain his crazy motives a little bit better, and also why he didn't catch Spencer cheating before Teddy did, if this was something that he was doing to all of her boyfriends. Anyways, we then see PJ at work. He turns to help a customer, and then once again he is spooked by Skyler's dad. He asks how much longer he's going to be following him around, and he says as long as it takes for him to find out the type of guy he is. PJ retorts that he's the kind of guy who's going to refill the cups. He then goes to do so, but they end up flying back at him when he tries to put them in the dispenser. This leads Skyler's dad to say that he has all he needs now to tell Skyler that he's not the right one. He then goes to leave, but PJ stops him using the PA system. He tells him that he is the right guy, that Skyler is the best thing that's ever happened to him, and he's not going away no matter what.
Thanks. Got all I need.
For what?
To tell Skyler you're not the guy. See ya.
No, stop. I am the guy. Skyler is the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I'm not going away no matter what. So put that in your little notebook.
Now, I just love this, and I kind of wish that Skyler was there to see it. I really am just a sucker for a proclamation of love moment, and I just feel like PJ is so good in this scene. I mean, he's good in every scene as he is Jason Dolly, and Jason Dolly can do no wrong as far as I'm concerned, but he is especially good here. Another reason why I wish Skyler was there, though, is because I would have liked her to actually find out what her dad has been doing all along. But then again, maybe this wouldn't be the best circumstances for her to find out, but either way, I hope that she does eventually. So her dad then walks up to PJ and he nervously asks if this is the part where he makes him disappear, and surprisingly he tells him to relax, that he stuck up for himself, which is all that he wanted to hear. PJ asks if it's okay then that he dates his daughter, and then we get the reveal that she's actually not his daughter. He then points to a man sitting at a nearby table and says that she's his daughter, and apparently he always hires him to check out the boyfriends. And so this is why I was using quotation marks every time I said Skyler's dad, although you may not have seen that because I usually play clips in my videos, but whatever. And so now this has got me thinking, because now I'm like, does this mean every time he was checking up on PJ, Skyler's actual dad was there as well, just like hiding in the bushes or something? I don't think that that's the case because the logistics of that just don't really make much sense to me. And then also, like, why would he hire this other guy in the first place just to like join him on every endeavor? Like, I feel like you hire someone like this so that you don't have to waste your time doing that. But then I'm also like, why was he at Quickie Chickie in this one moment? Did Leroy call him up and was like, hey, you gotta be there for this time because I think he's gonna break? Or was this just a complete coincidence? I don't know, but I have questions. But I do know that that is also the end of this episode, which also irritates me. Again, I still wish that Skyler found out that her dad was orchestrating all of this. And I think that a scene with PJ telling her about that could have been interesting to see. But at the same time, I also understand that like this whole arc was maybe more so for comic relief. So I really shouldn't even be thinking this much into it, but I just can't help it. Especially not when I feel like it was filled with just so much bad energy. Like I said, I did really feel for Skyler in this episode, and I hope that she does find out one day and is able to unpack all of it in therapy. Moving on to the following episode though, where we unfortunately have to say goodbye to PJ and Skyler, at least for the time being. So we begin with PJ showing Skyler his favorite show, which is of course the children's series, The Gurgles. And I'm starting to feel like maybe PJ and I have a little bit more in common than I thought. But Skyler loves it, telling PJ that it's very funny, and then he tells her that it's him and Charlie's favorite show. Skyler then receives a text and says that she has to go, but first she wants to take a picture of the two of them. PJ asks if it can wait till tomorrow to give him a chance to trim his beard. Skyler is confused by this as she doesn't see a beard, and this surprises PJ a little bit as he says that he's been growing it out for a month. She then emphasizes that she really needs this picture now, and so then he tries to get Charlie to take it, but then all she does is hold the camera, and so PJ decides that they can take it themselves. They then take a selfie in awe at the results. She then looks at PJ for a moment before saying that she better go. She then gets up, says goodbye, and hugs him for a little bit longer than usual. This causes PJ to ask if she's okay, and she says that she's fine. She then hesitates, but then ends up saying that she's fine again before leaving. PJ then tells her that he'll see her tomorrow, but all she says is bye.
Goodbye, PJ.
Oh, whoa. Hey, are you okay?
I'm fine. It's just that... I'm fine.
Okay. See you tomorrow?
Bye.
So obviously this sucks a lot, and I do feel like PJ deserves a lot better than this. If you're confused as to what's going on, I'm just going to say it because it is revealed in the next scene anyways. And I do think that they were making it quite obvious. But basically, Skyler is moving away. And it's like, I understand that she's young and not exactly the brightest, and so she doesn't know the best way to handle all of this, but still, it's not telling him. I think we all know that communication is very important when it comes to a relationship. And while this did make for a good scene, imagine how much better it would have been if it was a scene with her just telling him that she's leaving and them having that heartfelt moment. I know I would have been a mess, and it would have made for just such a good emotional moment. As this was like the healthier ship on this show, I would have preferred if they used this moment to show us some healthy communication. The following day, PJ finds a note on their door when he returns home from school. Obviously, it's from Skyler, and then we do a bit of a back and forth thing, as she's also left a CD player there. This is because she wanted him to hear it coming from from her, but then she couldn't bring herself to say it anyway, and then so he asked to read the note in the end. But essentially, the note tells him that their dad has been transferred to New York, and so they're moving there. She says that she wanted to tell him, but it just made her so sad to say goodbye that she couldn't, and she ends by telling him that she'll miss him forever.
I've got some really bad news. My dad has been transferred to New York City, which means I'm moving there. I wanted to tell you, but it made me so sad to say goodbye, I just couldn't. I'll miss you forever. Oh, by the way, this is Skyler.
So obviously I don't exactly love this either, but again, I have to remind myself that she is a teenage girl, which is something that I feel like I often forget about when I am making these videos, but it is the reality, and oftentimes teenagers are just toxic, and they're still learning, and that's okay. But I still feel like that doesn't make any of this any better, and it really sucks that PJ had to find all of this out through a note. Once again, I have to commend Jason Dolly's acting though, because when she gets to the part where she says that she's moving, he reacts like physically to this, and it just breaks my heart. But there is actually a little bit more to this scene that I wanted to comment on. So she then tells him to press play on the boombox again. And then we hear on the recording that she's added some sad music for him to cry to, I guess. And I don't know, I just felt like that was a bit of an odd choice. And then I feel like if somebody did that to me, I would just be annoyed by it. It's almost like she's rubbing salt in the wound. Like first she doesn't tell him that she's leaving, and then when she does, she also accompanies this with some sad music for him to like cry to. I feel like I'd be like, screw you, I'm not crying over you, I'm mad at you that you didn't tell me this. But at the same time, I can respect that that's not the reaction that PJ has to all of this. Anyways, the music then draws out their dad from the house. He asks what's going on, and PJ shows him the letter. This causes Bob to apologize to him, and PJ says that she was the love of his life and that he'll never be happy again. Bob then tries to calm him down, saying that he knows that he feels that way now, but then he cuts him off, saying that no, and that he'll never be happy again. He then goes on to say that in time he will be, but once again PJ cuts him off, saying nope, never. And so then Bob just gives up, telling him that he's right and that he'll never be happy again. This of course causes PJ to get upset, asking him how he could say that to him.
PJ, I'm so sorry.
Dad, she was the love of my life. I mean, I'll never be happy again.
Okay, I know it feels that way now.
No, I'll never be happy again.
PJ, in time.
No, never.
Okay, fine.
No.
All right. You're never gonna be happy again.
How could you say that?
So I have two thoughts in regards to this scene. First of all, again, I understand that they are teenagers, and oftentimes that is just how intense love feels for you at that age. And I do think that Jason plays that perfectly in this scene. But at the same time, I just feel like it's hard for us to believe that they are this deeply in love with one another when we haven't seen that. It would be different if by now we've actually gotten a few episodes about their relationship where they've developed it further and whatnot, but we haven't. Like, my God, we've never even seen these two kiss. Like, what is happening? I almost feel like they're trying to gaslight us into believing that this relationship changed PJ's life and was a huge part of the show, when in reality, it wasn't. And don't get me wrong, I wish it was. I wish we could have seen more than we did. I mean, to give them the benefit of the doubt, I guess you could argue that maybe that was all intentional, that maybe we're supposed to see all of this from Bob's perspective and be skeptical of this as well, which is what makes what comes next that much more shocking. But to repeat again what I've been saying this whole time, I wish that they could have given this couple just like a little bit more screen time. That way it would explain PJ's reaction a little bit better, and then I would have more emotional attachment to what's going on. Anyways, we later see Gabe come in the house with a CD player and a letter as well. The note tells them to press play, and then we hear a recording of PJ saying that he decided to follow Skyler to New York. Apparently, Skyler's parents said that he could stay with them until he lands on his feet. He thanks them for being a great family and then tells them not to worry about him.
Hey guys, so I decided to follow Skyler to New York so we can be together. Skyler's parents said I could stay with them until I land on my feet. So, thanks for being a great family, and don't worry about me. Love you. Oh, by the way, this is PJ.
So this is kind of insane, and I do love a grand gesture as much as the next girl, and so I do remember this plotline from when I was younger, and I just remember thinking that it was the most romantic thing, whereas now I don't exactly see it in the same light. I can't fathom Skyler's parents just being like, yeah, you can stay with us, and not even thinking about contacting his parents about this first. That's just like crazy behavior in my opinion. But at the same time, these are the same people that hired a man to stalk their child's boyfriend, so maybe they don't have the best judgment. That being said, all of this brings Bob to New York to bring PJ home. So he goes to Skyler's apartment and she answers the door. He tells her that he's looking for PJ and she sighs over the thought of him, saying that she can't believe that he came all of this way for her and gushing over how romantic that is. He then asks where he is and she tells him that he's at work. Bob is shocked to hear that he's gotten a job already and she tells him that he's working on Wall Street. He then is shocked by this as well, and then she clarifies that he's actually working under Wall Street. And then we cut to PJ busking in the Wall Street subway station. Bob quickly finds him and tells him that they need to talk. He tells him that they need to go home, but PJ quickly says no and that him and Skyler belong together. She is the best thing that's ever happened to him and they're meant to be together. Bob argues that he's only 17 and asks how he could possibly know that, but PJ says that all he knows is that he doesn't want to be apart from her. And so this cues Bob to deliver his grand advice. He tells him that they might not be apart forever and that when it comes to love, there's this old saying that goes, if you love something, set it free. If it comes back to you, then it's yours. If it doesn't, then it was never yours to begin with.
Son, if you love something, set it free. If it comes back to you, then it's yours. But if it doesn't, then it never was.
So maybe I'm alone in this, but this is seriously starting to give me some severe Corpanga flashbacks. These kids not wanting to be apart from one another and thinking that this person is like the love of their life, and then their parents being the only voice of reason. The difference here, of course, being that the kids don't end up getting their way in the end. Probably because Corpanga was more of like a main part of Boy Meets World in comparison to these two. And again, I do think that this plotline would have had more weight to it if we did get to see more of them together beforehand. But I won't harp on that again, as like I said, I do remember this still having an effect on me as a kid. I will say though, I found this moment to be a really good one. I like that Bob isn't getting upset with PJ, but instead he's being quite rational and level-headed about the whole thing, even giving him advice, which is quite admirable if you think about it. Like, his kid just moved across the country without telling him, and so I feel like he has every right to be very angry at him. But instead, I feel like he's quite calm and gentle with him, which I feel like is great to see, and PJ responds to it really well. And so then we end with PJ back at Skyler's apartment. He tells her that even though she won't find another guy as crazy about her as he is, he sets her free. And she says that even though he won't find another girl who's crazier than she is about him, he's free too. He asks if this is it, and she sighs before saying that this is exactly why she didn't want to say goodbye. He then rubs her shoulders, telling her that they shouldn't say goodbye then. Instead, he says see you later. They hug, and then Skyler heads back into her apartment.
So I guess this is it?
See, this is exactly why I didn't want to say goodbye to you.
Hey, let's not say goodbye then. Let's just say, see you later.
So I feel like this is exactly the scene that I wish that we could have gotten in the beginning of this episode. Not the whole like setting each other free stuff, because I do think that they were supposed to get there together by the end of the episode, but just that like saying goodbye heartfelt moment. I love seeing PJ being that voice of reason and protecting her by telling her that they don't have to say goodbye. That's the kind of stuff that I wish we could have gotten to see more of from them. And then I also think that this scene would have been a great opportunity to see the two of them kiss, because we never did. I understand that the kiss quotas on Disney Channel were quite strict, and so they were giving those moments to Teddy instead, but I still feel like PJ deserved that here. And with that, we say goodbye to Skyler for almost 2 seasons, as she doesn't make her next appearance until the end of the series. So in season 4, we have a crossover episode with Jessie, which takes place in New York. Basically, Teddy and PJ are going to New York so that Teddy can check out the NYU campus, and while Teddy is doing so, PJ goes to a kraut dog stand. After hanging out with the owner for a little bit, the guy goes to the bathroom, and so he gets PJ to watch the cart for him. Now alone, a girl approaches the cart asking for a kraut dog without kraut. And then once she looks up, PJ realizes that it's Skyler. She asks him what he's doing here, and he explains that Teddy is touring NYU. She is shocked that he got a job just for the day, but then he explains that it's only temporary. He then asks how she is, and she says great, that she's finishing up high school and getting ready to go off to college. He gives her props for this, and then they share a bit of a moment before he gives her her kraut dog without kraut. She asks what she owes him, but then he tells her that it's on him, as it's the least that he can do for his ex-girlfriend.
Wow, good for you. Well, here's your kraut dog. No kraut.
What do I owe you?
It's on me. It's the least I could do for my ex-girlfriend.
Thanks.
And so this is just perfect as far as I'm concerned. And I know it doesn't feel that long in this summary format. It's like she just left and then now she's back. But to put things into perspective, she left in season 2 and now it's season 4. So it's been like almost 2 seasons since we've seen her last. And I just love how much sense all of this makes. They're already in New York for this crossover episode. And so not bringing up the character that they moved to New York would have just been such a big missed opportunity. I remember when I rewatched the show a few years back, I completely forgot that they brought her back in this last season, and I just remember being so excited to see her character again. It's a great way to wrap up PJ's story and give them that deserved endgame, and then it also proves that Bob was right all along with his setting one free analogy. And then I also think that that's such a beautiful thing to show to kids watching, that like you never know what life will bring back to you. She tells him that it was good seeing him, and he says the same back. Then after she leaves, he notes out loud that out of all of the hot dog stands and all of the world, she had to walk by the one that he was temporarily working at. Later, we see George of George's Kraut Dogs return. He scolds PJ for selling a kraut dog without kraut, but he tells him that he didn't mean to, as it was for his ex-girlfriend. He then says that when he saw her, he realized that he hasn't really gotten over her. He asks if he told her this, but PJ says no, that he choked and let her walk out of his life once again. The guy then tells him that he thinks that he should find her and tell her how he feels, and PJ asks how they're going to do that when they're in the middle of one of the biggest cities in the world, going on about how there's gotta be at least 10 million people until he turns around and sees Skyler walking right towards him. She says hi, and then he tells her that he's really glad that she came back. He then says that from the minute he saw her, he knew that he was still crazy about her. And then she admits that that's actually why she came back as well, that she just finished talking to the kebab guy around the corner, and he helped her realize that she's still crazy about him too. They then hold hands, and he says that now that he has her back in his life, he's never going to let her go. But then she breaks the news that she actually has to go, as her family is going to Maine for Christmas. He is upset, asking if this is it, and she says that she's afraid so, that he'll be in Denver and she'll be going off to college. He then asks where she's going, and she reveals that she's going to Denver University. He is upset, not exactly realizing the connection, and then asks her if she'll write him. She says every day, and then the kraut guy chimes in. He points out that she's going to school in Denver and that he lives in Denver. They both clue in as to what this means and then hug one another in celebration.
I think I can help. You're going to school in Denver.
Yeah?
And you live in Denver. Oh!
So a happy ending to our ship after all. And I personally like to think that Skyler originally applied to Denver with the thought that maybe she would get to see PJ again. Even though she forgot about that fact in this moment, I am still choosing that as my headcanon because I think that that would be adorable. And who knows if they make it through university or how long they end up dating after that, but I'm at least happy that this couple got to spend more time together because that is definitely something that they deserved. Now, while their story is pretty much over, Skyler does make an appearance in the finale, so we'll talk about that briefly before we wrap things up. Basically, PJ gets a job at a food truck, and then on his first shift, Skyler walks over. The owner gets excited over their first customer until PJ reveals that she's his girlfriend and he texted her begging her to come. She then realizes that they sell fish with gravy and tells PJ that he owes her one. She then takes a bite, making a face in disgust afterwards. Gravy, the guy who owns the food truck, asks what's wrong, and she says that she likes the fish and she likes the gravy, she's just not too sure she likes the two of them together. And so he retorts that he likes her and he likes PJ, he's just not sure he likes the two of them together. PJ then tells him to come on and admit that it's a terrible idea, and Skyler replies in shock, thinking that he's saying that the two of them don't belong together, causing PJ to explain that he was actually referring to the fish and gravy. We later see Skyler again at Teddy's going away party. Teddy tells her that she's so glad that they're back together as they're perfect for one another, like the yin to each other's yang. Skyler says that she doesn't know what yin is, and PJ says that he doesn't know what yang is, and Teddy says exactly. And then I also think that it's important to note the fact that Spencer is also at this going away party. And then this is also the episode where him and Teddy become endgame. And then I just think that it's funny that he's forced to be there with his girlfriend and the girl that she cheated on him with. And then I like to think about him having to go to numerous Dunkin' occasions, with PJ and Skyler also being there, as I just feel like that's karma working at its finest. But with all that being said, that does wrap up our love story for today. Quite a shorter one than we're used to, but that's not my fault. That's Disney Channel's fault, so take it up with them. And now just to give one of my own theories as to why I think people love these two so much, or at least the 14 people that voted for me to make this video. So besides the fact that they're both adorable and perfect for each other, I also think that it's the fact that they're both pre-existing characters from this show. Imagine if Skyler was this random new girl that they brought in and not someone that we already knew. I feel like it would not have paid off in the same way whatsoever. And I honestly don't understand why time and time again shows will bring in a new character to be someone's love interest when 100% of the time it works so much better when they choose a pre-existing character. Like, I've honestly never seen anyone complain about the fact that we didn't even get that many episodes of PJ and Skyler together. And I think a main reason for that is because we didn't really need to. Like, while I can sit here and complain about the fact that I wish that we could have seen more of them, we also don't really need to because we already know these characters and we already know that they do work well together. But that being said, that doesn't mean that we didn't still deserve like a kiss or something. Anyways, that is all I have to say for today. Please let me know down below what you think of PJ and Skyler. I can't wait to read all about it. I'm really curious to learn what the like general consensus is in regards to this ship, although it's probably just the fact that they're miles better than Spendy. As always, you can let me know what ship you'd like to see me cover next by clicking that link in the description. That way I can do again what I did this month, which was pick a ship that nobody voted for. But no, you can also always leave your requests and comments down below. But with all that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful day and I'll talk to you very, very soon. I can't believe I wore like this whole cute outfit and you can't even see it. And like, I know that you guys can't even see it, so I don't even know why I did that to myself. But I have like, I'll show you. I'm wearing like a little skirt and I got my little heart tights on and I got my little socks. Oh no, I shouldn't show my feet. That didn't go well for me last time. Okay, bye.